Okay, I'm 51. I started in the self-help industry, just to call it that, when I was 16. And I have been a participant, a facilitator of other people's work, and a facilitator of my own work for 30 plus years. And the interesting thing is, there's actually a term for what happens in most events that you go to. And it's called the suntan effect. And what it means is, you go to an event, you feel very powerful, you feel like you can take on the world, and you can do anything, which is the equivalent of getting a tan. And then you go back to your life, and what happens? Now, there are stories of permanent transformation that takes place, but in general, it's suntans. You're going to find out today and tomorrow why that was actually by design, and it was brilliant that it was working that way, but that's what happens. And when I first was working with Tony Robbins like 18 years ago or something, I tried to take on that sucker and beat it. Because if I was promising transformation, I wanted to deliver transformation. And it wasn't happening for most of the people. And I tried everything I could think of. Doing different things, integration workshops afterwards, follow-up materials, special bonus everything. But it kept happening. And then finally I figured out on my journey that the only way that you can avoid that, if you're using live events, but the same thing is true if you're doing video kinds of things remotely, which I like to do, is if when you got them, you create a profound and deep transformation on the spot, so they don't have to go home and do something to create a deep transformation. It takes place. They may have stuff they got to do when they go home, but a deep transformation takes place when they're in the room, when you got them, when you got their attention. If you don't do that, forget it. You're getting a suntan. And I figured out how to do that, which is part of the experience that we're going to be going through today. And this is going to be very different for that reason in a lot of ways. I normally do this event, not this event, but this event about this topic, this material, over 4 days. Sometimes I've done it with 3 days. So we're condensing it into 2 days, which I've never done before. So we're going to have to move really fast on some stuff. But you are going to get it, even though we're going fast, because if there's a magic that's going to take place in here, and whether you're aware of it or not, you're going to get it, and the transformation is going to take place. But I'm going to have to go pretty fast because there's a lot that I want to cover with you. I will make it very easy for you in a lot of ways to review everything that you get here, so you don't need to worry about that. Look at the entire experience like this. Imagine somebody gave you a jigsaw puzzle, didn't show you the box, dumped all the pieces on a table and said, "Go get them, tiger." And you don't know what the picture is. So you start assembling pieces, and in the beginning you don't know what it is. You're just assembling pieces and the edges are starting to whatever, but you don't know what the picture's going to look like. And then you assemble enough pieces and you can kind of say, well, this is a nature scene, but you still don't know what it is. And you keep assembling pieces until at some point the whole picture pops out and you can see it clearly. That's what's going to happen here. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of puzzle pieces. And some of you have some familiarity with my work anyway, and you're going to have a big picture much earlier to start, and it'll expand a little bit if that's been your path. But just look at it as puzzle pieces, puzzle pieces, puzzle pieces, and trust that at some point the big picture is going to get really clear for you, because it will. At certain points you may wonder, where's he going with this? Where's this going to tie up? Whatever. But look at it as puzzle pieces and know that you will see the big picture. All right, I got to warn you. And again, there's a mixed audience here. There are some people that are completely new to my work, and there are people that are familiar. So if you're already somewhat familiar, you're not going to have as much of an issue with this, but the experience is going to deepen. And if you're new, this is really going to seriously mess with your head. So be prepared. All of your life, you were taught that the opposite of what I'm going to tell you here, pretty much, unless you had an unusual background, was true. So do not be surprised. You may think at times, is he crazy? If you're new to this. If you're not new to this, you wouldn't be here. If you thought some of this stuff, but you might. He can't be serious. This is not what I expected or wanted when I signed up for this. No way. Or my personal favorite, bullshit. That's all to be expected if you're new to this. Here's why, if it's the slide I think it is. No, not yet. You may feel at times, even if you are already familiar with some of my work, you may feel at times over the next couple of days overwhelmed, disoriented, skeptical, angry, uncomfortable, or fried. That's necessary to get you where I want to go and where you want to go, or you wouldn't be here. I love playing with technology, which you're going to see. You've got to be seriously shaken up if you want to journey to the infinite, because we have all been fed a line of shit that is not true, and which has limited and restricted us far beyond any way you may be consciously aware of, and we've got to blast that out. So to do that, we got to get pretty dramatic. Despite all of that, if you are like most people that I experience with, a voice from inside of you is going to be whispering to most of the key stuff that I say, if not all of it. That's true. And somehow I have always known it. You're not telling me something new. You're shining a spotlight on something that somehow I've always known, and you're just kind of reminding me. This is my experience of most of the people that find their way into my orbit, that this is what happens, even if there's a bunch of noise in their head along the lines of what I just shared. This gets louder ultimately. That may be your experience, it may not. I want to start out with one of many video clips that are just designed to plant seeds.
Every age, every generation has its built-in assumptions that the world is flat, that the world is round, etc. There are hundreds of hidden assumptions, things we take for granted that may or may not be true. Of course, in the vast majority of cases, historically, these things aren't true. So presumably, if history is any guide, much about what we take for granted about the world simply isn't true. But we're locked into these precepts without even knowing it oftentimes. That's a paradox.
There is a method to my madness. I know how to take you on this journey to the infinite and create this transformation, even if it doesn't make sense to you. So as I mentioned, accept each puzzle piece and assemble them as best as you can as you get them. The big picture will become clear to you. This is very important. No matter what your experience in these next 2 days, and no matter what kind of noise may be circulating, if you decide to take this journey, you will prove to yourself through experiences in your own life that you cannot deny or argue with that every single thing that I'm telling you here is true. Even the wildest, most outlandish parts. And a lot of it is wild and very outlandish. But you'll prove it to yourself if you take this journey. Except for feeling a resonance and recognizing that the truth with capital T's is there, doesn't matter whether you agree with any of this stuff or there's noise in your head, you will prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt to yourself when you go back to your life if you take this journey, which is your choice. Like Morpheus in that video, I can only show you the truth and open a gateway, and then the rest will be up to you. This is an important point too. Raise your hand if you know someone who has been a spiritual teacher of some kind, who had an experience in their life, spontaneously found themselves in an expanded state and really have no idea how they got there, except they were just there. And they teach from that position, but they don't know how they got there, so they can't give you the steps to get into the same place. Even if they offer steps to get you somewhere, it isn't how they got there. Everything I'm going to talk about in these next 2 days is the model that I use to get into an extraordinary place that I'll be talking to you about, and the tools I'm going to share with you tomorrow are the tools that I use to get there. I didn't have a near-death experience. I didn't have some wild something and found myself aware of all of this stuff. This is the way I got there. I have deep personal experience with everything that I'm sharing with you, even the most outlandish parts. None of this is theory. None of this is recycled intellectual ideas that I thought were cool, and so I started sharing, which is what happens a lot in the self-help world. Somebody comes across a very sexy idea, they like it, they resonate with it, they start teaching it, no personal experience with it being truthful or not. It just seemed like it made sense, or they had a lot of respect for the teacher. I did some of this in my 20s and earlier parts of my life too. It's not an integrity thing, it's just what happens. But I've had deep personal experience, and at this point, I've had experience with thousands of people around the world taking the same journey, and their stories and what's happened with them. You can test me on this if you choose to. You'll see that it's true. You always hear this at seminars, but this place in particular is not the time or place to be shy. Ask questions. I'm here to help you journey to the infinite. I can do that, but you've got to make sure you get what you need. So don't be shy. My preference is that you ask all questions in front of the audience so that everybody can benefit. If for some reason you feel a need to do something privately, still do it. Just ask me at a break or when the sessions are over in the evening or whatever it is, but make sure you get what you need. This is an extraordinary opportunity and take advantage of it. This is a very important request that I have since the room is mixed. If you have familiarity with my work, which those of you that are new will soon understand the Phase 2 label there, please do not ask questions on a topic that I have not covered here yet. Wait. Or ask me privately if you just got to ask it now, you know. But wait. Don't ask me about the tools today in front of the group when I haven't covered them, or some of the other stuff that I haven't covered. Wait till you've seen me cover it, and then it's fair game to ask questions about whatever I've covered. So since the room's mixed, that's a very important request I have for you. These slides, as I said, are my guitar. They keep me on track and make it easy for me to communicate and make sure I don't wander off onto tangents and let me use a lot of multimedia resources. They're also designed to aid you in what I call multisensory learning and integration of the material, not creating the suntan effect, creating actual transformation. So everything that happens here is very important and goes deeper than it probably will become clear to you in the way it was designed. Just let them wash over you. You don't need to take any notes at all here. It's one of the things that's very different. If you want to jot something down, you could jot down an aha that you get, but resist any temptation you may have to want to write down stuff that you say here, or see here, or write down stuff you hear me say. This isn't about that. This is not an intellectual deal. This is a completely different experience, and you just can let everything wash over you.